Hello everyone, I am the storyteller and I am here to help you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to fall asleep, so before we begin, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let me know where you're from and what time you're watching. Now get comfortable and listen closely because what you are about to hear was never meant to be found. In the late 18th century, Europe was gripped by fear not of monsters or demons, but of ideas, because ideas had begun to overthrow kings, dismantle churches, and challenge centuries of unquestioned authority. And in this fragile atmosphere of paranoia and revolution, the Bavarian Illuminati emerged as a secret society whose internal practices would later be described as disturbing, dangerous, and deeply unsettling by both governments and the public. While modern culture often exaggerates Illuminati rituals into grotesque fantasies, the true historical reality is more chilling precisely because it is real, documented, and rooted in psychological control, ideological indoctrination, and extreme secrecy rather than theatrical horror. The rituals of the Illuminati were not about blood sacrifices or occult demons, but about something far more threatening to the ruling powers of the time: the deliberate reshaping of belief, loyalty, and identity through structured initiation, moral testing, and enforced secrecy, practices that were officially recorded, investigated, and condemned by state authorities. Initiation into the Illuminati was not a casual affair, and surviving internal documents reveal a methodical, almost unsettling process designed to strip an individual of independent allegiance and replace it with absolute loyalty to the order's ideals. New members were subjected to prolonged observation before initiation, unknowingly studied by senior members who recorded their habits, weaknesses, ambitions, and fears in secret reports. These psychological profiles were not symbolic. They were written, archived, and used to determine how each initiate would be guided, corrected, or manipulated. The initiation rituals themselves involved solemn oaths taken under conditions of secrecy and moral pressure, where recruits pledged silence, obedience, and dedication to the goals of the order above personal, religious, or political ties. For an era where loyalty to church and crown was considered sacred, this redirection of allegiance was deeply disturbing, and when later exposed, it was described by investigators as a form of ideological reprogramming rather than a simple fraternity ceremony. One of the most unsettling real aspects of Illuminati ritual practice was the enforced confession and moral examination required of members as they advanced through ranks. Unlike religious confession, these sessions were conducted privately within the order and documented in internal records, where members were encouraged to disclose doubts, personal failings, family influences, and political opinions. This information was then used to assess loyalty and to subtly guide behavior, ensuring conformity to the order's philosophical goals. Historians who have studied these documents note that such practices created an environment of constant self-surveillance, where members internalized the gaze of the order, policing their own thoughts and actions even when alone. This was not symbolic theater, it was an early form of psychological conditioning, and it alarmed authorities because it demonstrated how a secret organization could shape individuals more effectively than any public institution. The Illuminati also employed ritualized language, symbolic ranks, and controlled knowledge distribution, practices that were later interpreted as sinister because they created layers of hidden truth within the organization. Lower-ranking members were deliberately kept unaware of the full scope of the order's philosophy, believing they were part of a moral improvement society, while higher initiates were gradually introduced to more radical Enlightenment ideas that challenged monarchy, organized religion, and inherited authority. This staggered revelation was intentional and documented, designed to prevent shock, resistance, or betrayal. Critics at the time described this as deceptive and manipulative, accusing the Illuminati of using ritual progression not for spiritual growth, but for ideological control, a claim supported by confiscated correspondence during the Bavarian investigations of the 1780s. What made these practices truly terrifying was not their symbolism, but their real-world consequences. When Bavarian authorities uncovered the Illuminati's internal documents, including initiation manuals, oath texts, and member reports, they reacted with immediate suppression, banning the order and prosecuting its leaders. The language used in official decrees reveals genuine fear, not superstition, as the state accused the Illuminati of undermining religion, corrupting youth, and secretly influencing education and governance. These were not abstract accusations. They were based on written evidence showing systematic efforts to place members in influential positions and guide societal change from within. The rituals, in this context, were seen as tools of infiltration and control, capable of quietly destabilizing entire institutions without a single act of violence. Perhaps the darkest truth revealed by authentic records is that the Illuminati understood something revolutionary for their time, that loyalty shaped through secrecy, ritual obligation, and psychological investment could be stronger than loyalty enforced by law or tradition. Their rituals did not terrify through spectacle, but through intimacy, binding individuals to an unseen structure that demanded obedience without public accountability. This realization is what made the Illuminati so frightening to contemporaries, and why their rituals were labeled disturbing in official reports, sermons, and political writings. The terror was not in what the rituals looked like, but in what they accomplished, creating disciplined networks of influence invisible to the public eye. As fear spread across Europe, exaggerated rumors quickly attached themselves to these authentic practices, transforming psychological discipline into imagined occult rites. Yet at the core of every myth lay a documented truth. The Illuminati had developed ritualized systems capable of reshaping identity, allegiance, and belief in ways that threatened established power. This is why their rituals were not merely condemned, but erased, their documents seized, their leaders silenced, and their name transformed into a warning whispered for generations. The real horror of Illuminati rituals is not found in fantasy, but in the uncomfortable historical fact that ideas, when protected by secrecy and ritual discipline, can alter society more effectively than force, leaving behind a legacy that still unsettles the modern imagination. As investigations into the Illuminati intensified during the 1780s, what disturbed authorities most was not a single ritual or oath, but the cumulative picture that emerged from confiscated documents, testimonies, and correspondence, revealing an organization that had systematized secrecy, obedience, and ideological control with unnerving precision. When Bavarian officials raided the homes of known Illuminati members, they discovered detailed manuals outlining initiation stages, moral tests, surveillance reports on recruits, and coded communications, all of which painted a picture of a society operating beneath the surface of public life with deliberate intent. These findings were not interpreted as symbolic or philosophical exercises, but as evidence of a structured attempt to influence education, politics, and moral values from within, using ritualized loyalty and compartmentalized knowledge to maintain control. The rituals, once exposed, appeared less like ceremonies and more like mechanisms designed to produce reliable agents of change, individuals who would act in alignment with the order's goals without ever openly revealing their affiliation. One of the most unsettling real practices uncovered during these investigations was the Illuminati's system of internal surveillance, a ritualized process where members were encouraged, and in some cases expected, to report on one another. These reports were not informal gossip, but written assessments submitted to higher-ranking members, detailing attitudes, doubts, political opinions, religious beliefs, and behavioral patterns. This practice created an atmosphere of constant observation, where loyalty was reinforced not through fear of punishment alone, but through the psychological pressure of knowing that every action, conversation, and belief might be documented. Historians examining these records have noted that this internal monitoring functioned as a form of ritual discipline, shaping behavior long before any formal intervention was required. For authorities accustomed to visible hierarchies of power, this invisible system of mutual surveillance was deeply alarming, as it demonstrated how control could be exercised quietly without prisons, soldiers, or laws. Even more disturbing were the accusations surrounding how the Illuminati used gradual ideological exposure as a ritual tool, carefully guiding members toward increasingly radical ideas without their full awareness. Lower-level initiates were presented with moral self-improvement, intellectual curiosity, and ethical discussion, concepts that appeared harmless and even admirable, while higher levels introduced critiques of monarchy, organized religion, and inherited authority. This progression was not accidental. Internal correspondence shows that leaders believed sudden exposure to radical ideas could provoke resistance or betrayal, so knowledge was released in stages, each one framed as a logical extension of the last. Critics describe this process as deceptive and manipulative, arguing that members were bound by earlier oaths before they fully understood the philosophical destination of the order. The terrifying aspect of this practice was not the ideas themselves, but the method by which belief was reshaped through ritual obligation and controlled revelation. When the Bavarian government officially moved to suppress the Illuminati, the language used in legal decrees and public announcements reflected genuine fear rather than moral panic. The order was accused of corrupting youth, undermining religious belief, and infiltrating institutions of learning, accusations supported by evidence showing that Illuminati members actively sought positions as teachers, advisors, and administrators. Education, in particular, became a focal point of concern, as officials believed the order was using ritual discipline to quietly influence the next generation of thinkers and leaders. The idea that a secret society could shape values and loyalties through controlled intellectual environments was perceived as a direct threat to state stability, and the rituals associated with recruitment and advancement were framed as tools of subversion rather than expressions of belief. The interrogations that followed arrests added another layer of darkness to the story, as testimonies revealed how deeply some members had internalized the order's authority. While torture was unfortunately common in 18th century investigations, what struck observers was that many former Illuminati members continued to defend the order's goals even under pressure, minimizing its secrecy or rationalizing its methods. This loyalty was interpreted as evidence that the rituals had created bonds stronger than fear of punishment, reinforcing the belief that the society possessed an extraordinary ability to shape allegiance. For critics, this was proof that the rituals were not symbolic, but psychologically binding, capable of creating devotion that persisted even after exposure and collapse. As news of the suppression spread beyond Bavaria, writers, clergy, and political figures across Europe seized upon the Illuminati as an example of how secret rituals could destabilize society from within. Pamphlets and sermons warned of hidden initiations, secret oaths, and unseen networks undermining faith and authority, often exaggerating the facts, but always rooted in the documented reality that such practices had existed. This amplification transformed the Illuminati from a regional secret society into a continental symbol of hidden danger, where every ritualized oath or private meeting became suspect. The fear was no longer limited to the order itself, but extended to the concept of secrecy combined with ideology, creating a cultural anxiety that would echo through later centuries. What makes these events truly terrifying is that they demonstrate how ritual does not need spectacle to be effective. The Illuminati did not rely on dramatic ceremonies, violence, or supernatural symbolism, but on repetition, secrecy, obligation, and gradual belief alignment. Their rituals operated quietly, shaping thought rather than frightening the senses, and it was precisely this subtlety that made them so effective and so feared. When authorities finally dismantled the order, they were not destroying a cult of superstition, but dismantling a system that had proven how easily loyalty and influence could be engineered beneath the surface of public life. This chapter of history reveals a disturbing truth supported by authentic evidence: that rituals grounded in discipline, secrecy, and controlled knowledge can alter human behavior in ways that leave no visible trace. The Illuminati did not need blood or spectacle to terrify their contemporaries. Their true horror lay in the realization that society itself could be quietly reshaped by those who understood the mechanics of belief, loyalty, and silence. It is this realization, documented in court records, decrees, and seized correspondence, that transformed the Illuminati from a suppressed organization into a lasting symbol of hidden power, fear, and unresolved suspicion. By the mid-1780s, the Bavarian Illuminati had already been officially suppressed, yet the consequences of their ritualized practices continued to ripple through Europe, leaving a trail of suspicion, paranoia, and political unease. The authorities who investigated the order were alarmed not simply by secret oaths or philosophical discourse, but by evidence that members had strategically positioned themselves in positions of influence, including education, administration, and clerical roles, and that these positions were being used to quietly guide thought and opinion. Even after the official dismantling, former members continued to operate under the radar, and the perception that a hidden network was quietly manipulating events amplified the sense of fear. Contemporary reports describe how rumors of secret meetings, coded letters, and disciplined loyalty led both political and religious leaders to suspect that the Illuminati's rituals were not merely symbolic exercises, but functional tools of social and political control, capable of reshaping communities without a single public act of violence. The arrests, trials, and confiscations that followed revealed rituals that were methodically designed to create obedience, allegiance, and secrecy, practices that became terrifying precisely when combined with the real-world impact of the order's influence. Members were subjected to layered oaths, monitored for loyalty, and gradually introduced to more radical philosophical ideals, creating a form of intellectual discipline that some investigators likened to brainwashing. While modern interpretations often exaggerate these practices, the historical record shows that these rituals were effective, as many initiates maintained secrecy and loyalty even under intense scrutiny or public exposure. This level of psychological control was unprecedented, and it is this subtlety, not theatrical horror, that made the Illuminati appear almost omnipotent in the eyes of contemporaries, reinforcing their mystique and inspiring decades of speculation, rumor, and fear. Beyond individual control, there were documented instances where the Illuminati's influence intersected with political events, heightening the perception that their rituals had real, destabilizing consequences. Though historians caution against attributing entire revolutions to a single secret society, correspondence and archival notes indicate that Bavarian officials were concerned about the order's ability to sway public opinion, incite debate in intellectual circles, and subtly influence leaders sympathetic to Enlightenment ideals. The fear was compounded by the organization's disciplined secrecy. Authorities could not fully trace networks, access the content of communications, or determine who had been truly indoctrinated. In effect, the rituals, designed to produce obedience, secrecy, and ideological alignment, allowed the Illuminati to operate invisibly, creating an environment in which their mere existence, whether active or suppressed, generated paranoia and unrest. This dynamic is what gave rise to many of the legendary, terrifying rituals later attributed to the society, as the unknown always appears more threatening than the documented reality. Even after the order's disbandment, public perception continued to magnify their mystique, blending historical ritual with imaginative speculation, yet always rooted in a terrifying truth. The Illuminati had mastered a form of control that left no obvious trace, a discipline of loyalty, secrecy, and ideological molding that authorities could neither easily dismantle nor fully comprehend. Clergy, writers, and political commentators seized upon this invisible power, creating pamphlets, warnings, and sermons that depicted the Illuminati as capable of manipulating governments, education, and religion from behind closed doors. These narratives, while often embellished, drew directly from documented rituals and reports, preserving the chilling reality that secrecy combined with disciplined psychological practices could generate fear far beyond the society's actual size or lifespan. By conflating real rituals with the unknown potential of hidden networks, society transformed the Illuminati from a historical order into a lasting symbol of invisible influence, ideological power, and moral terror. The enduring fascination with Illuminati rituals arises from this combination of documented practice and human imagination. The historical record demonstrates that the rituals were not frivolous, nor were they intended for spectacle. They were strategic, psychologically potent, and deeply unsettling in their implications for authority, loyalty, and obedience. When combined with the mystery surrounding suppressed documents, secret networks, and the survival of former members, these rituals became the foundation for centuries of speculation, conspiracy, and cultural fear. The lessons of this history are profoundly unsettling. A small, disciplined organization, operating quietly and strategically, can produce loyalty and obedience through ritualized practice and ideological guidance, leaving society unaware until fear and rumor have transformed fact into legend. This is the authentic terror behind the Illuminati's rituals, the reason they were feared in their own time, and the reason their name continues to invoke unease, intrigue, and fascination centuries later. Even centuries after its suppression, the shadow of the Illuminati lingers, not in open action, but in the psychological and cultural space created by their documented rituals and the fear they inspired. The very structure of the order, oaths, secrecy, hierarchical knowledge, and ideological shaping produced loyalty and obedience that persisted long after members were disbanded, demonstrating how ritualized practices can leave a mark far greater than armies or law. Historians and sociologists note that the legacy of these methods is not merely anecdotal, it is a study in human behavior, in the ways secrecy and structured discipline can guide thought, reinforce allegiance, and create networks of influence that operate silently beneath the surface of society. The psychological power of these rituals was their true danger, and it is this invisible influence that modern myth has amplified, transforming historical practices into stories of terror and manipulation that continue to captivate and unsettle imaginations today. The cultural mythos of the Illuminati has drawn upon these real rituals, blending documented historical facts with speculation, rumor, and fear, creating a persistent image of a secret society capable of shaping the world unseen. Movies, books, conspiracy theories, and documentaries often exaggerate, portraying ceremonies as occult or violent, yet these representations are anchored in genuine history. The order did exist, its rituals did exist, and its ability to influence members psychologically was undeniable. Scholars emphasize that while exaggerated claims of global domination are false, the methods by which the Illuminati maintained loyalty, secrecy, and ideological cohesion were startlingly effective. These historical truths, when left to imagination, evolved into myths so enduring that even today, names, symbols, and supposed rituals evoke anxiety and fascination, illustrating the enduring psychological impact of disciplined secrecy. The Illuminati's rituals also left a legacy in the way secret societies operate, revealing techniques that would influence subsequent organizations, whether political, philosophical, or fraternal. Their combination of staged initiation, moral testing, and progressive ideological exposure became a model for controlling belief and behavior within a closed system. And while later societies did not replicate the Illuminati exactly, the principle that ritual, secrecy, and discipline could enforce loyalty and shape thought remains a cornerstone of many clandestine organizations. What is particularly unsettling is that these methods do not require overt violence or terror. They rely on subtle, incremental influence, psychological commitment, and the internalization of duty and secrecy, producing effects that outlast the physical presence of the society itself. Modern fascination with the Illuminati often focuses on the sensational or fantastical, yet the authentic historical fear was rooted precisely in this quiet, invisible power, which created networks of influence and allegiance that were almost impossible to trace or counteract. Ultimately, the legacy of the Illuminati rituals lies in their demonstration of the terrifying potential of human psychology when combined with secrecy and structured practice. They show that fear and influence can be manufactured without spectacle, that obedience can be engineered without chains, and that small, disciplined networks can produce consequences far beyond their size. The rituals were designed to bind members intellectually and morally, creating loyalty that endured under pressure, and the documented suppression of the order highlights just how threatening this was perceived to be by contemporaries. Today, the story of these rituals serves as both a historical lesson and a psychological case study. It reminds us that secrecy, discipline, and ideological shaping are tools of real power, capable of terrifying influence, and that the myths surrounding the Illuminati, while often exaggerated, originate in truths that were sufficiently unsettling to provoke fear, legal action, and cultural obsession. The enduring fascination, unease, and mystery surrounding the Illuminati are therefore not mere fantasy. They are a reflection of authentic historical practice, human psychology, and the terrifying implications of invisible influence that continue to resonate in modern consciousness. The rituals may no longer be performed, the society dissolved, yet the shadows they cast stretch across centuries, a chilling testament to the potency of secret knowledge and the subtle psychological power of disciplined allegiance.